Studio Ghibli is probably the most recognized name when it comes to 2D animation. Spirited Away was the first and only Oscar win for a 2D animated feature-length film until this year when The Boy and the Heron won. But what makes a Studio Ghibli film so good? Or in other words, what makes a Studio Ghibli film? What you have to understand is that even though there are numerous talented artists who work on Studio Ghibli movies, they are only directed by one man, Hayao Miyazaki. He's the sole creative voice of most of the Studio Ghibli movies. Miyazaki has gone on to work 12 feature-length animated films for Studio Ghibli and even co-founded the company. He is so integral to the Studio Ghibli operation that when he was planning to retire, the producer for Studio Ghibli, Toshio Suzuki, planned to terminate the studio.
要するに皆さんが辞めるんならね、制作部があっても要するにね、意味はないかなと。ほんでそこら辺みんなにもちゃんときちんと説明して、で理解をしてもらって、それで制作部の一旦休止っていうのか解体っていうのか、そういうことをやったわけだよね。
By the way, most of the information found in this video will be from the Never Ending Man documentary or a biography released on Miyazaki himself. Now you're probably wondering, Troy, who on earth would ever purchase a book for $60 in the modern day on Hayao Miyazaki? I bought the book. When it comes to making a movie, Hayao's process is a bit unorthodox. He doesn't like to start with a script because he sees it as limiting yourself to an idea. Instead, Miyazaki observes life and decides what he would like to see for himself on the big screen. A quote from the book says, "How much of your stories do you know before you start drawing?" I asked Miyazaki. "Knowing the story and knowing what happens in the story are two different things," he answered. "When I started to storyboard Spirited Away, all I knew was that the girl gets separated from her parents and some weird things happen to her. That was all. I discovered everything else while drawing it." There's some staples that are in Studio Ghibli films, one of them being a childlike whimsical feel to the overall movie, and I think the starting process helps create that effect. He doesn't limit himself when it comes to his ideas. Miyazaki loves to get inspiration for his films from observing. You can see it clearly in the documentary when he stares at plants for creating the film Boro the Caterpillar. He's staring at leaves and flowers to build the world of the short film. He not only gets location inspiration from life, but also from people too. In the Hayao Miyazaki book, it states, "I have known Hayao Miyazaki. To sum up his talents, he doesn't forget what he has seen." This is true for still objects, but also moving objects. When Miya's-san comes across a building or a landscape that he likes, he gazes at it for a while, taking it in. It may be for 5 minutes, or 10 minutes, or even several hours. In Spirited Away, the character Chihiro is modeled on a 10-year-old girl whose family visited Miyazaki at his atelier in Shinsu every summer from the time she was a small child. In the opening scene of the film, Chihiro runs through a strange town. Her way of running, lifting both arms up slightly and popping them from side to side, replicated that of the little girl. This isn't to say that he interacted with the girl. He just observed her mannerisms and demeanor, never becoming bored. He would watch how she acted when she was with other children, how she behaved when she was surrounded by adults. He would observe how she expressed her feelings for as long as time allowed. However, the childlike whimsicality might just be a way to keep up with his audience. Miyazaki has stated that young people inspire him to create and push forward with his films. His creativity that stems from his ideas are not just for the film, but to cater to his out-of-the-box thinking fans. In most of his movies, there's a theme of the preservation of nature. The most prominent example would probably be Princess Mononoke. At first glance, it seems like Miyazaki is going for the humans bad and nature is good theme. However, you realize it's much more nuanced than that. It's about the coexistence of both nature and humans. There are beautiful and amazing things about nature that we should appreciate. However, there are also horrible and dangerous things about nature, just like how humans can be both bad and good. And Ashitaka is the medium between both of these worlds. He stands up for both sides and tries to keep the humans from being too selfish and letting the nature world live in peace, while controlling Princess Mononoke to not hurt humans in their town. It's a beautiful love letter and warning to the coexistence of both worlds. The book also talks about this too. Miyazaki's films are full of characters that are appealing and cute. That cute character may eat someone, vomit, or start leaking fluid. True, Totoro is fuzzy and soft, He also has a very large mouth full of huge teeth. No Face in Spirited Away is mysterious, but also turns violent and gruesome and lonely. Miyazaki finds a perfect balance between appealing, gross, charming, and creepy. Miyazaki is great with these themes because of his observation and love for the world. It's important to Miyazaki to not follow trends or what other movies are doing. He wants to go in other directions, not just the standard for the medium. He doesn't let anyone else tell him what to do.
大体僕らがやった映画で客が入るはずがないってどっかと思ってた思わないよね作りたい作ると入んないんだからだから生き残ったんでしょ多分結果論から言えば要するにお客が入るように作ったらもうとっくの昔に忘れられてるんだ
His goals with his movies is to give hope, which is a huge theme with most of his films. The book says, the question then becomes, what is hope? And the conclusion I have to venture is that hope involves working and struggling along with people who are important to you. In fact, I've gotten to the point where I think this is what it means to be alive. His outstanding films never rely on formulaic narrative devices. They are entertaining and thought-provoking in their elegant simplicity, with complex philosophical undercuts. One effect that Miyazaki uses is a term he calls ma, which in Japanese means space or pause. Miyazaki loves to use ma near the end of the film to juxtapose the high tense rising story. One great example is the train scene at the end of Spirited Away. The film's tension is at the highest, however in the scene nothing happens. Hayao believes without scenes like this, the high-intensity scenes won't have the same effect. It's what makes the high-intensity scenes hit so much harder. These scenes are also great because it gives us insight into the characters, establishes the setting of the final act of the film, or just characters observing the outside world, just like how Miyazaki would. It may be a stretch to say that pacing of Miyazaki's films mirrors real life, but they certainly seem more closely related to A Quiet Walk in the Woods than to other animated films. In a world where most of us can't sit for longer than a few seconds without pulling out our phones, Miyazaki's films invite us to feel the breeze as it blows through a field, dream along with a young girl as she watches the clouds drift by, or wait at a bus stop with two sisters on a rainy evening. Many moments in his films are about nothing other than the charm of watching a kid eat soup or a tired old woman walking. It is rare to find a director who uses quiet and serenity so effective. This is actually something that I try to employ in my work as well, and I think I started getting the idea to do it just from watching Miyazaki's films. I don't even think I was thinking about Miyazaki's work when I was doing it, but it just felt so natural in the story I was telling. Obviously though, when you think of Studio Ghibli movies, you're thinking of the masterful animation that no other studio is doing. For the art in Studio Ghibli movies, Miyazaki is a sole creative director for the film. He approves every frame of art and gives tweaks to them. Miyazaki could be seen as rude or nitpicking when tweaking the art. However, it's just because of his dedication for film and the animation medium that makes him this passionate. Miyazaki's output, in contrast, has been viewed almost exclusively as the personal vision of a single artist. It is in fact he alone who determines every detail of his film, from storyboards and character designs to the animation of key scenes. Speaking of the animations, it's important to Miyazaki to always draw the characters' faces in the background. Usually in Disney animation, they would be blurred out, have a generic look to them, or just have no faces at all. But for Miyazaki, he has this philosophy.
ちゃんとした人間たちを描くこと本当に大事な考え方なんだよキャラクターを描いてると思ってるの人間描いてると思いなさい
The important aspect of Miyazaki's creativity is his impulse to imagine the world from another's perspective, through a character's eyes. So every character in a group or background has a defined look to them. No two people are the same in Studio Ghibli movies. The characters are profound and have their own goals. Most characters in animated movies at the time, such as Snow White or Cinderella, are perfect princesses who don't do anything wrong. However, Miyazaki's characters are different. They're flawed like people. They're not perfect. Miyazaki's characters are genuine and memorable because, while they may be charming and heroic, they are never perfect. Chihiro in Spirited Away is downright spoiled as the film begins. She pouts and complains in the backseat of the family car. She screams in fright when her parents turn into pigs. She cries in desperation at being stuck alone in a strange bathhouse with weird creatures. I mean, well, who wouldn't? Rather than put us off, this behavior draws us in and helps us connect with Chihiro. She exhibits the same fears and vulnerabilities any of us would experience in her situation. animation. Miyazaki gives the character room to mature and grow, allowing us to discover that she also has strength, courage, and the ability to love. In a world where AI art is evolving and becoming more normalized, it's refreshing to see beautiful hand-drawn animation come to light in the modern day. And it's crazy to see how far ahead of the curve Miyazaki was. In the process of Boral the Caterpillar, one worker of Studio Ghibli said they were in the process of using AI to help create animation. They had the belief that in the future AI could make animation just like humans can. And Miyazaki had this to say.
極めて不愉快ですよね。そんなに気持ち悪いものをやりたいなら勝手にやってればいいだけで、僕はこれを自分たちの仕事をつなげたいとは全然思いません。極めて何か生命に対する侮辱を感じます。どこへたどり着きたいですか。
まあ人間が描くのと同じように絵を描く機械を
作りたいんだ。
はい。
Miyazaki will take mistakes over non-human made art. He's always tried to push the animators to exceed what they think they're capable of. Miyazaki has always been known to push the artists in the art form of animation to its fullest potential, even when it's not easy for him. Hayao has become famous for saying he's gonna retire, but then coming back to make another movie. He's retired 4 times now, and has come back every single time. And it's because of his passion for making movies and sharing his creative world. The Never Ending Man documentary was filmed when Hayao was 72 years old. When this was filmed, he expressed feeling too old to be working. Now, with the release of Boy and the Heron, Hayao is now 83 years old and he's still working to push animation storytelling even further. Miyazaki has always had this idea to not be content with settling, but to always push yourself further than you think you can handle.
今のままでいいのよって歌が流行ってんだからね。ありのままで、ありのまま最低だよって僕が言うんだけど。ありのままの人間なんて大体面白い。努力してあげて無理して痩せ我慢してきたんだ。
In the documentary, there's a sense that time is running out for Hayao, that his old age is limiting himself for what he can handle.
俺はもう大々年金受給者です。前と同じように集中力ね。途端に体がボワボワになって。なんかね、やってみたいことはあるけどやれないなとこういう思いの方が強くなるから、そんなね異常表現の映画を作りたいと思ってるんじゃないけど、そういうことができるのかどうかそれも分かんない。
He questions whether or not he can handle all the pressure and burden of making such a creatively draining project. He's also discouraged because he thinks he might die of old age during the process of making the actual film. But he pushes through it because of his incredible burning passion for filmmaking and animation. He would rather make something challenging and die trying than just sit around doing nothing.
映画できちゃった時に情けない思いをしないことが一番大事だから、ああやっとけばよかったってことは絶対ないよ。やったけどダメだったねとまだマシなんだよ。そう本当にそうなの。本当にそうだからね、これは。
If there's any idea I want to leave you off with, it's this. If you want to make any sort of art, take some of Miyazaki's advice and make what you want to make, and push yourself to make it the best possible piece it can be. The passion you share is contagious, and the people will love it because of that. Miyazaki is a uniquely gifted storyteller, an artist who takes advantage of what animation does best, building fantastic worlds and characters that wouldn't be possible in any other medium. But it is his childlike capacity for observation that gives his fantasy its firm grounding in the familiar, and his ability to capture the familiar that gives his work its believability. Hayao Miyazaki's films take us into a lush, inventive worlds that ultimately serve to wake us up and inspire us to look more closely at our own. Hey, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and maybe subscribe. I make tons of film content, so if you enjoy this video, maybe you'd like another one. Thank you.